Here's your 7-part, first-person, cinematic story. Each part ends with a mini cliffhanger. The laugh hit before the light did. Crystal chandeliers threw diamonds across a room full of cousins as my mother-in-law lifted a glass, and his cousin Cassie held her hand up to catch the sparkle. It wasn't the light that stopped my heart. It was the ring. Oval ruby, old-cut diamonds like sugar crystals, the band worn soft where my grandmother's hand had loved it thin. Inside, an engraving small as a secret. Lark 1957. She turned her hand so the room could admire, and every camera followed like good dogs. Isn't it stunning? My mother-in-law cooed. A family piece finally in the right hands. I am Mara Lark, 32, school counselor by day, late-night silversmith by sanity. I make tiny things that last longer than plans. I married Lucas Rivera, architect with a tender laugh. 2 years ago in a courthouse with rain on the windows and my grandma's ring cold and perfect on my finger. We kept the big celebration for later, the one with the band and the speeches and the family politics dressed as dessert. Later became tonight. The band played Motown. The champagne made throats brave. My mother-in-law, Vivian, parked herself at the center table like a queen whose court was owed a show. She had asked so sweetly to store my heirlooms in her safe, just until the party. For optics, she'd said, like love is a brand. Now Cassie wore my ring, and Vivian smiled as if she'd rearranged the world and improved it. Lucas's hand found my knee under the table. I felt him look without turning. We had been arguing in whispers for a week, about boundaries, about his family's definition of ours, about whose name sits on a safe deposit box card, and what it means when someone calls theft a favor. I'll fix it, he had said last night, forehead against mine, his voice a promise he believed. On stage, the MC called for toasts. Vivian rose, pearls clacking like applause. To family, she sang, eyes sliding to me, to doing what is right with what we're given. The room drank. I did not. Cassie lifted her hand to admire the ruby again. The underside flashed, the place only the wearer ever sees. I felt the air go thin. Because the engraving inside the band wasn't just Lark 1957. It also held the smallest nick where the gold met, a shallow crescent shaped like a healed wound. My ring. I stood, napkin trembling in my fist, and the band leader's mic found my mouth just as I said, "That ring is mine." Grandma called it the fire in a cherry. When I was 8, she let me hold the ruby on Sunday afternoons while Jeopardy asked smarter questions than anyone at our table. You don't own stones, she'd say, slipping the ring back on. You borrow them from time and take good care. We were a small apartment family with big table hearts. My mom worked doubles at the clinic. I learned to listen to the sound people make when they're almost crying. I got good at noticing. At school, I was the kid who fixed broken clasps and mended bracelets with dental floss until I could buy real wire. I fell in love with metal because it tells the truth. Heat, pressure, polish. Life, but honest. Lucas arrived at a craft fair I almost skipped. He bought a silver crescent I'd made from a spoon and asked if I could make a circle that looks like it remembers being a moon. We talked until the vendors dragged tarps over us like tents. He was all soft hands and sure eyes, an architect who believed buildings should breathe with the people inside them. We married quick and quiet. We promised each other easy things, good coffee, the truth, no more silent treatments. Then came Vivian, not a villain at first, just a weather system. She speaks fluent for your own good, monograms air, and believes relatives are furniture you polish for guests. She is also a master of the gentle knife. It began as help. She insisted our wedding rings deserved a proper vault. She ordered the caterer to switch my menu so no one feels poor. She sent me a spreadsheet titled Family Stones with a note. Let me catalog for you. I'm very organized. I let her take the little velvet box of my heirlooms for a week, while the safe deposit box paperwork cleared. She smiled like a locksmith. Subtle mistreatment settled like dust. Presents with price tags left in, tips on posture in rooms with donors, a gentle correction when I introduced myself as Mara Lark instead of Mara Lark Rivera. At dinners, she called my silversmithing your craft dear the way some people say phase. She loved Cassie like a mirror. Cassie, who posted everything, who said things like, old money energy and meant Vivian's china. The jewelry box stayed gone past a week. Then past 2. When I asked, Vivian laughed. Oh, honey, safe boxes take time. My work paid in cash and patience. As a counselor, I learned kids' real names for fear. As a metalsmith, I hammered quiet into shine. I kept the anger in my wrists and turned it into bracelets that held. Then a little humiliation, a family lunch where Cassie joked that my ring was too old lady for me. Vivian added, it belongs somewhere it can be seen, which sounded like generosity until you noticed how she watched my face. Later, Lucas kissed my hair and said his mother means well, and I promised to believe him one more time. I did what counselors do when cornered, observed and took notes. I snapped photos of my pieces before I handed them to Vivian. I wrote dates. I made a list titled If It Goes Missing with names of jewelers we'd used, and the engraving marks only I knew. On Tuesday, Cassie posted an Instagram story, hand on steering wheel, ruby winking, song lyric about legacy. I held my phone like a hot coal. My DM, beautiful ring. What's the backstory? Went unread. The next day, she put up a boomerang of a tiny velvet box with the caption blessed by family. My heart felt like a building with a thin crack. I showed Lucas. He closed his eyes. I'll talk to her, he said, and I watched the weight sit on his shoulders like he'd agreed to carry a piano upstairs. Friday morning, my friend Syra, who's worked at Benton and Rowe Jewelers for 10 years, texted a photo, a resizing slip signed in a familiar fountain pen curl, V. Rivera. The slip listed the job like a confession. 18K yellow gold ring, ruby center, resize from 6 to 7.5. Engraving present. Do not polish interior. Syra's text was short. Are you okay? The receipt date matched the week Vivian took my box to catalog. I forwarded the photo to Lucas. 3 dots. Then a phone call. I'm coming home, he said, voice different. Don't go anywhere. All day, I counted breaths in 4s. At school, a 9th grader cried because her best friend said grief was inconvenient. I wanted to tell her adults do that too. After the bell, I walked home slowly and pretended my hands weren't shaking. Vivian arrived before Lucas, which was her way. She came with a cake perfect as a magazine and the kind of smile that hurts. You've stirred up a mess, she said, setting the cake down without asking where. Calling jewelers? Harassing Cassie? If you'd like a ring, we can purchase something appropriate. It was mine, I said. Quiet. You took it. She sighed, disappointed that I'd made us both vulgar. It's a family ring. She said family like deed. Cassie's engagement is first in line. Traditions matter. My grandmother isn't your tradition, I said, folding my arms to keep my insides from falling out. She's my person. Vivian's mouth softened, then tightened. Cassie has more visibility, she said. She carries things well. Her gaze flicked to my dress like the evidence agreed. Lucas came in on the end of that sentence. For a suspended moment, all the versions of him stood in the doorway. The son trained to placate, the man who loves me, the architect who knows what load-bearing means. Give her the ring, he said. No hello. Vivian blinked. Excuse me? You heard me. He looked older. It's Mara's. She tilted her head. We can buy another ruby. That one is Larkinside, I said. My voice had a small iron bar in it. She laughed a sound with no joy in it. Oh, good grief. We can re-engrave. No, Lucas said. Not everything is copyable. Cassie swept in 10 minutes later with a wind of perfume and followers. Am I being served? She giggled, holding her hand out and making the ring flash like a middle finger. Hi, cousin. Sorry for your confusion. We're not confused, I said, and slid a printout of the resizing slip across the table, like a card in a game I hadn't wanted to play. Vivian signed for the work. My work. Cassie skimmed, smile flickering. Aunt Viv said it was a shared piece, she tried. She said you keep jewelry in drawers. The safe deposit box has my name on it, I said. Yours doesn't. Vivian's phone buzzed. She glanced, and for the first time I saw nerves. Lucas must have been busy. Later I'd learn he'd texted his father, the family attorney, and himself. The group chat. Immediate meeting. No more optics. The lawyer's reply, return property now or face conversion claim. Cassie dug in. I'm not taking it off at my own engagement dinner, she said, cheeks high with heat. You can't make me. She was right, and she was wrong. I couldn't. We could. This is the part where, in another story, I might have ripped the ring off her hand and thrown it into cake. In this one, I did what I'm good at. I observed. I made a list. Evidence already in hand. Inventory photos time-stamped the night before Vivian took my box. The Resize slip with Vivian's signature. Syra, ready to testify the ring, came in with the engraving Lark 1957. The bank form showing only my signature on the safe deposit box. Next steps. Insurance schedule update. Report items as removed without permission. Demand letter drafted by counsel. Public context. Delivered once. A gift no one could rebrand or repossess. I sent a single text to Lucas from across the room. Let's do it our way. He looked at me and nodded like a vow. But first, I let myself be angry. The good, clean kind. I stepped close to Cassie, so only she could hear. Wearing a stolen thing makes your finger look thin, I said. It makes your name look thin, too. Her eyes flashed wet. For once she didn't have a caption. 2 days later, at the big family dinner Vivian had planned to seal the narrative, Lucas carried in a small black box and a thick white envelope with our attorney's seal. He set them side by side like two versions of the future. We chose the restaurant because Vivian likes their napkins. She likes the owner to recognize her. He does. She smiles at staff like mirrors. The private room was all candles and curated olives. The Rivera family filled it to the edges. Uncles smelling like cigars, a dozen bracelets whispering on Vivian's wrist, Cassie at the end of the table in a white dress that was not shy. I arrived in a navy dress with pockets and my grandmother's locket around my neck, one of the few pieces I'd kept out of Vivian's care. Inside, Grandma's picture looked like a secret I wanted to be good for. Lucas stood when I did, and nobody missed that. He gave a small speech about gratitude and architecture, about foundations you don't see holding up the rooms you do. Vivian glowed, certain the show had come back to its proper stage. Then he put the small black box and the white envelope on the table. 2 things, he said. One is small and pretty. One is large and boring. Both will change tonight. Vivian's smile faltered. Lucas. First, he said, picking up the envelope. I want to fix a theft. He handed it to his uncle, the family lawyer, seated at Vivian's right. That contains a demand for immediate return of the following items. Ruby ring, diamond stud set, enamel brooch, and pearl choker, all inventoried here. He tapped the list. It includes witness statements and work orders with signatures. It also includes a draft complaint for conversion, which we hope not to file. A hum skittered down the table. Cassie looked like she might stand. Vivian touched her arm. Not yet. And Lucas added, a police report number. Because if we shrug, we teach our kids that theft in pearls is still theft. Vivian sat very still. Are you proud of yourself? She asked, sweet acid. Embarrassing your family? Protecting my wife is protecting my family, he said. He meant it. He opened the little black box. Inside sat a ring that was not the ruby. It was a slender band of hammered gold, irregular as a breath. Around the inside, a new engraving small as a prayer. Lark and Rivera. My turn to keep. It's not a replacement, he said to me. Nothing could be. It's a promise. I'm never asking you to put treasure in someone else's hands again. My throat closed. I nodded. He wasn't finished. Lucas pulled a second envelope from his jacket, thick with deeds and signatures. This is the boring one, he told the room. It is also the point. He looked at me, then at Vivian. I am transferring the deed to our home in Tamara's name as sole owner. I am also assigning 30% of my firm's equity into a trust in her maiden name, the Lark Trust, irrevocable. It will fund Mara's work and the Lark Bench, a scholarship for women silversmiths. It vests tonight. Aunties murmured like wind through paper. Someone dropped a fork. Cassie stared like the room had tilted. Vivian blinked. That's not how our family does things. Lucas smiled without humor. Lucky for us, Mara didn't marry your family. She married me. He looked to Cassie. Please remove the ring. She started to argue, stopped, and slid it off. The little crescent nick caught the candlelight like a wink. She placed it in the velvet box with hands that shook. Vivian inhaled like a person who just remembered oxygen has rules. We can discuss privately, she whispered. No, I said, my voice surprising me by being gentle. You started this in public. We'll finish it here. I lifted my locket and held it for a moment with 2 fingers, like a person steadying herself on a rail. I loved being invited, I told Vivian. I don't love being owned. There's a difference. Lucas slid the velvet box to me. It weighed almost nothing and everything. Vivian reached for the box and stopped when the attorney's finger touched the envelope. She stared at him, at me, at her son. Something old in her face cracked. Then she said a sentence I didn't expect. Fine. Return all of it. The attorney cleared his throat, a delicate gavel. Let the record. Vivian shot him a look. The family know that Mrs. Rivera has agreed to return the listed items immediately. He turned to me. We'll arrange a handover after dessert. Cassie made a sound like a hinge. I didn't do anything wrong, she said. Aunt Viv said it was mine. I met her eyes. She was still a girl looking for an adult to tell her who she is. You can start doing right now, I said, not unkindly. You can give back what isn't yours and refuse the next pretty lie. She flushed, then lifted her chin. I'm sorry, she said. It was lumpy and late. It was also true enough to feel like a door. Vivian stared at the table, seemed like it might teach her something. I wanted to keep the story straight, she said finally, voice hoarse. Family things stay in family. I exhaled a small, tired laugh. I am family, Vivian. You just don't like the shape I came in. Lucas set a thin folder in front of her. And here, he said, are the times you asked boutiques to flag Mara's card. Here is the jeweler's resizing slip with your signature. Here is the safe deposit access log. Here is the blog submission from your account. Here is the cost I won't let you keep writing on my wife. He tapped the last page. No more. Vivian's hand trembled. For a heartbeat, I saw a young woman in her face. Someone told that love is compliance and control is proof. Someone who learned to alphabetize her fear. I am not responsible for her healing. I can hope she wants it. The room watched the tide turn. Uncles looked at their plates. Aunties recalculated alliances. The owner pretended to fuss with a candle and absolutely did not miss a word. Lucas turned back to me and lifted the hammered band. May I? He asked. I held out my right hand, palm sunlit, and he slid the ring on a finger untroubled by family maps. It fit like a thing that had been waiting for this exact moment. For the record, he said to the table, Mara paid our down payment. Mara covers half our mortgage. Mara's business keeps our emergency fund healthy. Mara is not a guest. She's the builder. I swallowed a laugh and the urge to cry, both loud. And he washes the sheet pans, I said, because truth likes company. Dessert arrived. Vivian didn't eat. I did. The chocolate was indecent. After coffee, the attorney handed me a small receipt to sign and wrote a pickup time. 11 a.m. tomorrow, he said. At the bank. I nodded. My body remembered ease for the first time in months. At the door, Cassie touched my arm. Can I send you photos of the pieces? She asked. So I can learn the difference. Shame and hope braided in her voice. It looked new on her. Sure, I said, surprised to mean it. I'll tell you the stories. The next morning, under cold bank lights that make everything uglier, Vivian slid my velvet box across the counter, and another small box I didn't recognize. This is also yours, she said, not meeting my eyes. I made a mistake you don't know about. There are apologies that try to bargain and apologies that try to breathe. Vivian's was the second kind, or at least learning to be. In the new box sat my grandmother's enamel brooch, the one I hadn't realized was missing, and a pair of earrings I'd never seen. Opals, small stars. My mother took them from your grandma when our boys were toddlers, Vivian said, voice steadying in the telling. She said she was borrowing for a charity gala and returned everything but these. I found them when she died, and I kept them. I told myself it was collateral on 1,000 small wounds. It wasn't. It was theft. She pushed the box to me like a person pushing a boat off a shore she knows she has no right to stand on. Something in my chest loosened. Thank you, I said. The words cost me nothing and not everything. Give your therapist this speech, I added, and she almost laughed. Almost. The fallout moved through the family the way weather does, first rumor, then reality. A cousin stopped taking Vivian's calls for a week, then called her back with rules. The anonymous blog that had posted my kitchen and sneer-captioned, aspirational, put up a single note. We regret our role. The boutique that flagged my card sent a basket and a note that admitted, Mrs. R. asked us to. We're sorry. I sent the basket to the school staff room. Cookies repair a universe inch by inch. Lucas and I rewrote our house rules. No accounts with anyone's name on them but ours. If a family member wants to borrow a thing, there is a form and a photo and a date. Love doesn't cancel paper. It invites it. At home, I opened the velvet box and told myself the stories out loud. The ruby ring. Grandma saved 3 winters of tips to buy it when my grandfather finally stopped gambling. The brooch, she wore it to her citizenship ceremony. The pearls, she hated them and wore them anyway because my mom thought they made her look like people on TV. I took the opals to my bench and cleaned them. Metal obeyed. Light returned. I posted a photo with a caption that said some returns take 2 hands. I did not tag anyone. People reacted. Neighbors knocked, eyes soft and nosy. A student's mother hugged me in the cereal aisle and whispered, my sister-in-law took my wedding set when I was at the hospital. We stood by the Cheerios and said sentences we'd never said out loud. The cashier pretended not to see our faces. Vivian stepped down from a charity board to reflect. She thanked me in a text not written by an assistant. She still says things like, you don't have to work, but now she stops when she hears herself. Cassie, surprisingly, changed the most. She sent photos of her jewelry and asked, real or costume? She took a class at the community college, Intro to Metals, Safety and Saws, and messaged me the night she made her first jump ring. It's ugly, she wrote. I love it. I sent her a photo of my first solder seam, terrible as a cracked sidewalk, and told her the truth. Ugly is honest. Honest is the beginning. What did the wider circle say? Some whispered drama. Some said boundaries like a password. Most forgot, the way people do who weren't cut by the blade. That is its own gift. 1 month later, at a small gathering Vivian insisted on hosting to reset, Lucas stood up again, took my hand, and said, we have one more announcement. He turned to his mother. It's about your will. The reset wasn't a masquerade. It was a truce. Vivian had arranged garden chairs, too close together the way nervous people do. She hovered with a tray like penance. Lucas squeezed my hand under the table, the new hammered band warm. We changed our estate plan, Lucas said calmly, eyes on his mother. No family member can ever hold Mara's property in trust without her consent. And we've set aside a piece of the firm, permanently, for the Lark Bench scholarships, in Grandma's name. It activates now, not when anyone dies. Vivian inhaled. That's generous. It's correct, he said. Then I stood. I'm opening a tiny studio, I told the table. A place where kids from my school and women in our neighborhood can learn to saw and solder and set stones that belong to them. No monograms unless they want them. We're calling it Lark and Laurels. I looked at Vivian, and something like pride passed over her face, then settled into relief. Richard, quieter than the room remembers, raised his glass. To learning where the line is, he said, and to knowing when to stop stepping over it. Even Vivian clinked. After, under strings of lights that finally felt like ours, Cassie brought me a small box with tissue paper around something lumpy and dear. I made you a ring, she said, cheeks pink. The band was uneven. The solder seemed a little burnt. I put it on my thumb and loved it fiercely. It reminds me that first drafts count, I said. She exhaled a laugh that sounded clean. When the night thinned, Vivian and I stood at the sink washing glasses because some tasks repair faster than words. I thought protecting meant controlling, she said, not looking at me. It's what my mother did. It made me feel strong. It made you feel alone, I said. I know that feeling. She nodded, quick. I'm trying. She handed me a towel. Thank you for not crucifying me. I didn't forgive you for you, I said with a half smile. I forgave you for me. She almost laughed. Almost. If you're listening with a fist inside your chest because someone you call family keeps taking things that hold you together, hear me. Every scar tells a story of survival. Keep fighting for your truth. Write down the serial numbers. Take photos. Get a lawyer who speaks softly and files sharply. Train your hands for the life you want and use them. Tell me in the comments the one boundary you'll set this week, paper or promise. I'll read them between school bell rings and solder seams and maybe name a scholarship after the bravest one. When we went home, I opened the velvet box, took out the ring, and slid it on. The engraving brushed my skin, Lark 1957, and I could almost hear Grandma. You don't own stones. You borrow them from time. I watched the ruby catch the lamplight and throw it back like a kept vow. In the other room, Lucas hummed while he rinsed sheet pans. The house felt like a hand I could hold. Something far more valuable than jewelry had been given in front of everyone and, more important, in private: sovereignty. Safety. A map where my name didn't require permission. I slept with the velvet box under my pillow, not because I was afraid, but because some endings deserved to be kept close until morning.